Okay, so in this lab, we're going to create an S3 bucket, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at our topology. So in the previous labs, we created an AWS infrastructure, and then from that, we had a virtual private cloud with two availability zones. And within each availability zone, we had a public and private subnet. And from there, we created an Amazon EC2 instance, which is a virtual server, in the public subnet 1. And then after we created the EC2 instance, we created an image of it. And from that image, we created our second EC2 instance in the public subnet 2. Okay, so in this lab, we're going to create an S3 bucket, and an S3 bucket is used for two purposes. One of them is for file storage and file storage policy, and I'll give an example of one. And the other reason is for hosting a static website. So you can host static websites on S3 buckets, okay? And you can use something like CloudFront to deliver the more dynamic content of your website that's more closest to the end user, okay? So going back to file storage for S3 buckets. So the S3 bucket is where you maintain files that are retrieved periodically. I would say at least once every 90 days. And you have files being uploaded and downloaded and edited and uploaded again. So these are files that are constantly being retrieved, right? And so you're going to incur a little bit higher cost for these type of files. But you can set a file policy that says if the files aren't used in 90 days, then you can simply send those files to the kind of like the second level of storage, which is S3 standard and frequent access, where you pay a little bit cheaper rate. And these are for files that are accessed less frequently. And then if files are not maintained over a period of time or accessed in a period of time within standard and frequent access, you can send them to Amazon Glacier, which is like your archival storage for documents you no longer use. But regulatory compliance requirements may say you may need to keep the record for at least 10 years. Okay, so you'd use Amazon Glacier for something like that because it's cheaper, right? And you're not accessing those files hardly at all. Okay, and so again, a file storage policy could be if a file's not accessed within an S3 bucket within 90 days, send it to S3 standard and frequent access. Okay, and then if files aren't accessed within infrequent access, let's just say for 120 days, then send it to Amazon Glacier. Okay, and that's an example of a file storage, file retention policy. Okay, so we will go ahead and get started on the lab with creating our bucket as a static website. Okay, so I will minimize this window. Just want to make sure I was recording. There's been plenty of times I've created labs and I forgot to hit the record button. Okay, so I'm glad to see that I didn't forget to do that. So we'll click on, we will go to our Academy Learner Lab, right? And so under the module that says Launch AWS Academy Learner Lab, you'll click Start Lab, okay? And you may have to pause the video for your yellow circle or yellow light next to AWS to turn green. Should take about 60, 70 seconds, okay? Mine's already starting, and I'm going to click on the AWS console, all right, because my light is green. Oh, I got a lab authentication error. Okay, so I'll probably need to log out and log back in again and access the lab, which I can do that. So I'll pause the video while I'm doing that. Okay, so what happened? For some reason, it logged me out, between me talking, and I got distracted at work and I had to take care of something else and had to, pause the video. And so it just logged me out and I had to log back in again. So we can go ahead and get started with the lab. My AWS light is green, so I will go ahead and click on it. Okay, and you will want to follow the instructions as we're going along, right? We're going to create an S3 bucket to host a static website. Okay, so we will do that by going to the search bar, which is another way to access S3. Type S3 and simply click on it. Okay, and then from here, we'll select create a bucket. Now, one thing you want to make sure your bucket is going to reside in this North Virginia region, right, where our infrastructure is at. Okay, and so the AWS region will be in US East 1 region. Okay, we want to leave this as a general purpose bucket, and we want to give our bucket a unique name. So you're probably going to have to use some digits. Look at the requirements for naming buckets. The name must be unique within S3. Only lowercase letters. Name must start with the letter or number. Can be between 3 and 63 characters long. And then once you create it, you can't change the name. So whatever type of documents you're storing in that bucket, you want your bucket name to match what's actually being stored. Okay, so if you were storing I don't know, information, you collect comic books, you're keeping track of your comic books and your images of comics or whatever, and then your bucket name would have the word comic book, right? Comic book collection or something of that nature. Okay, so for our purposes, it's our first static website we're creating, so we'll name our bucket just static website bucket and just put 4 characters, 4 numbers that are different than mine. And we'll, to make the buckets unique across the AWS environment. So we got our bucket name. And then we want to make sure that the access control lists are disabled, because when we do security on a bucket, we don't use security groups like we do with EC2 instances. We set security through policy. Okay, and we just want to create a bucket that's going to allow public access to our website. So we want to take the check mark off, block off public access. If you're creating a bucket for file storage within an organization, you would want to be a little bit restrictive in your policy, okay? And then you need to acknowledge that you're turning off the block public access feature, okay? And then we're going to scroll down and we're simply going to select create bucket. And the buckets don't take long to create. They come right up, okay? And so if you look at our instructions, okay, we've actually gone through step 7. I don't know why there's steps being skipped in the instructions. I could probably edit that, but it's okay. We go to task 2, and under task 2, we're going to choose the link for our bucket name, and we're going to select the permissions tab, and we're going to add a bucket policy, okay? And we're going to click on static website, just click on it, select the permissions tab, okay? The block all public access features off, that's what we want. And under bucket policy, we want to click edit. And then we get this little window to put our script in. So you want to go to your script and you want to make sure that it's downloaded, the script that we provided for you in the course. And I kept my script somewhere in here in the documents folder. It's under AWS Labs, somewhere here. Okay, yes, there it is. Okay, so there's my script. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this script. I'm going to right click and select copy. And in the policy window, I'm going to right click and go click paste. Okay, and hit the enter key after line 16. So your cursor is blinking on a blank line. And I'm going to verify that. Okay, now for the example bucket, which is a sample file name of the bucket, we got to replace that with the actual name of our bucket. So under bucket ARN, not the whole ARN, but just find your bucket name like I'm doing here. Go copy and paste that in lieu of example bucket. Okay. And then everything looks good. Double checking. Yep, it looks good. And I am going to scroll and select Save Changes. And you should get a successfully edit bucket policy. Okay. Now from here, we are going to close that green window there where it says successfully edit policy and go back to our instructions. And we save the changes, and then we're going to upload our HTML document that's part of the lab. So we go back to the browser and we saved it. And so we want to go to the Objects tab, and we want to select Upload. And you want to select Add Files. Mine is in the Downloads folder. And so if you ever wanted to see that index HTML file, what it is, you can right-click on it and open with Notepad. And it's just a simple HTML script that we wrote. I'm no web programmer by any stretch of the imaginations. I know some HTML. Real briefly, right? So HTML in between tags represents the beginning of the HTML document, and a minus or forward slash HTML represents the end of the HTML document. And you'll notice with HTML, you tell the browser when something starts and when something ends, right? So in this example, H1 is kind of like a main heading or a title for your web page that's in larger font, right? And so you're turning that on. The name of your web page is called S3 Bucket Lab, and then the forward slash H1 is the end of your title, situated in between brackets. And then we're just creating a paragraph here. That's what the P means. And this is what our paragraph reads. And then this is where our paragraph ends with the forward slash P. Okay. And so that's what it is, right? Nothing fancy. I'm going to close that and I'm going to select Open. And then from there, we want to select the upload at the bottom. And you should get an upload succeeded. Okay. And then you can click close for upload status. Okay, next step. We want to test our website. We got to enable the website for static website hosting. Okay, we haven't done that yet. And we want to specify that the index HTML document that we uploaded is the actually main HTML script for the main part of our web page, right? So when we click on the URL, that's the web page that appears. So we do that under the Properties tab. And I believe it's all the way at the bottom. Okay, no static websites hosting is disabled. We want to click Edit. We want to enable it. And we want to type the file name. The file name has to match this file name, right? But it's in HTML. So if I point my mouse, you'll see it says HTML document. And the file name's index. So it's index.html. Okay. Key that in there. Click Save. Okay. And so you're verifying you're in the North Virginia region. And if you scroll to the very bottom, after you enable the website for static website hosting, okay, you have a bucket website endpoint, which is your URL for your website. And this is it right here. So you just click on that, right, to copy it. And you should get a bucket website endpoint copied. And then from here, you want to open up a tab in your browser, new tab, right click, and do a paste and go. Okay, now I've been having problems with the script, with it loading. And so let's just try a script again. We'll see if we can't edit that. It's an issue with the script. So we go to permissions and let's take a look at that bucket policy. Highlight all that, go delete. See if I can paste this plain text. Oh, I did a copy, so I got to go back to the script. And here it is right here. Just copy, edit, and go paste this plain text. Try pasting this plain text this time. I mean, it all looks good. I just need to change the file name again. So we highlight example bucket, highlight static website, copy that, paste it in, plain text. See if I hit save. Okay, it's been successfully edited. If for some reason it's not going to load. So I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to try to troubleshoot this and I'll let you know how it was fixed. Okay, so what I did is there's this resource on Amazon, real briefly, in Google search, S3 bucket policy for script for public access website. I typed that into my Google search, and the first hit I get is the AWS documentation page for it. It tells you how to do it. So we did step one already. Okay, so we don't have to worry about that. And then we're just going to copy all this and add the bucket policy. Let's see if this works. We'll copy. Okay, now we'll need to change the bucket name to our actual bucket name. Okay, and then a message appears, and if you see an error, okay, and this should do it. So let's go to let's edit the bucket policy again. So we're going to edit it. I'm just going to delete all this. Okay, and then we're going to paste it in with the actual name of the bucket, which is static website 444. We're going to copy that and replace it with the bucket name without deleting the forward slash, and then hitting save. Okay. And then let's copy our URL again. So we've edited the bucket policy. We go back to the properties tab, scroll all the way down to static website hosting, copy the bucket website endpoint. I'm going to open up a new tab, right click, paste, hit enter, and there it goes. Okay. So again, there's issues with the formatting on the notepad when we're transferring things from the notepad. And again, these labs aren't about just like everything works perfectly the first time, because that's just not how it works in the real world. I'm just showing you how to do something. I stumble across a problem and then we kind of troubleshoot it and where to get the right information. So one of the things that you can keep in mind is that AWS has a document page for thousands of pre-written scripts, right, in which you only need to edit a couple of things. So I think I mentioned that earlier in the course. And so what you want to do, you also want to build a library. You can build a bookmark for this and say, I can click on bookmark, give the bookmark a name, setting permissions for S3 website access, right? And then if you ever need to go back here, you have the script. But, if I compare it to the Notepad document, right, and it looks, see, there's an extra space here, and that might be thrown. Maybe that was it. But it's hard to tell if there's a space there or not. That's probably what it was. So you have an extra space. Effect. See, there's a space here too. See, when I'm pasting the script into Notepad, it's changing the format a little bit on these. So, and that's just something we'll just have to pay attention to. So you can go through this and look at your script. And for example, there should be a space here. And I know, see, because that kind of aligns. And then action should be a space. Then you have your S3 get object. That looks good. And then your resource, again, looks space. And / asterisk, then quote. That looks good. Okay, closing bracket, closing bracket, closing bracket, and close. So the rest of it looks good. Okay. I edited it. Now, if it doesn't work this time, that's fine. I'm going to save it. We got the website to work, so we know what the fix is, right? We go to the documentation page on the AWS website, and we copy and paste it. And then from here, I will go back to the permissions tab and edit the bucket policy. Now that I've copied this, right, with all the spaces that I didn't have before, we will see if that fixes the problem. So we'll have a valid Notepad document that we can refer to. But if not, we got the documentation page. So we click on edit. Okay, we hit delete. I'm making sure I'm still recording. And then we're going to right click, select paste this plain text. And I got to replace the bucket name with the name of our bucket. Now, if the website goes down, then we know it's something with how it's being transferred from the text editor into the window here. So I'm pasting everything as plain text, save changes. It's been edited. And now if I see now the site, oh, that's the old one. Let me refresh and see if the website's still up. It's still up, so that was correct. This Notepad script actually works, so you can kind of hang on to it and just make the same changes I made in the video. So again, I want us to focus on troubleshooting as much as just following the step-by-step process, because I don't want you guys to become a bunch of AI robots and just following the steps, right? It's okay to encounter problems. It's okay for the instructor to encounter problems, and we walk our way through to troubleshooting it. Okay, so that completes the lab. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to your instructor in the course room. Thank you.